Night on the banks of the Rhine. A German reconnaissance plane skims low. The lens sweeps across the wet grass. Shadows stretch out exactly like the silhouettes of tanks forming up in lines. On a familiar radio band, a transmitter releases short bursts. The cadence is steady. The brakes land in the right places. And it repeats the same spelling mistake they have heard for weeks. Reports snap together out of habit. There is a new armored division. The next morning, 2 reserve regiments are ordered to wait on the far bank. On this bank, there is no company raising its guns. Only canvas, loudspeakers, a radio set, and a story told with tiny traces, just enough to make someone confidently turn the wrong way. Who built an army that never fired a shot? They jokingly call themselves the Ghost Army, a unit that feels part stage crew, part signal corps. With the calloused hands of engineers, the goal is not to plant a flag on a hilltop. The goal is to pull the enemy's arrow on the map of the real route. So fewer of their own people have to step into the arc of artillery. They arrive before nightfall, study the usual flight path of reconnaissance planes, gauge the slope of the field, check the wind, note the drainage ditch, then assign tasks in low voices as if talking about nothing at all. Stakes go into the ground, guidelines draw tight. A canvas model lies flat like paper skin. The radio tent rises in the dark. A small lamp is muffled, just bright enough to light a notebook page streaked with pencil. A valve twists open. Air flows. A Sherman swells into shape. The fender edge appears. The track guards fill out. The turret cap rises just high enough for a camera to read the shadow, but still soft enough that a naked eye will not demand detail. The distance from tank to tank is measured off with a line, exactly by the manual. Ranks not too dense, not so thin that it looks odd. A heavy truck crawls across the field in low gear, carving deep ruts close to what real tracks would leave, then runs the path again, giving the sense of fresh traffic. A soldier dips a brush into a muddy puddle, taps the edge of the hull, right where splatter would land from a rut. Through the lens nothing is perfect, and that is exactly why it looks real. The tape starts low, a raw rattle of tracks, a muster call muffled through canvas, cold metal clinks, all of it layered with a touch of deliberate wind hiss, so the ear hears the distance as a little farther. Speakers sit low, aimed down the valley. The sound does not shoot straight into the air. It skims the grass, then rises. The quieter the night, the clearer the movement of the column. The left edge inches forward, the right falls back. The middle platoon reinforces. A sentry on the far slope only needs to tilt his head, and he can hear an entire formation turning. One command shreds in the wind. One footfall drags half a beat. Tiny flaws give the sound some grain, and because of that, it feels true. Inside the tent, the lamp glows amber. The operator flips open a thin notebook of the real unit's radio habits. The hours they transmit, the way they abbreviate, the harmless typo someone over there always makes. Type like they do. He whispers, then drops short groups of characters. Silent for 10 seconds. 2 more groups. Silent. On the other end, listeners do not read the content first. They read the rhythm. The rhythm matches. The frequency matches. The quiet intervals match. The old mistake appears again when the radio matches the habit. Reconnaissance eyes will see what they already expect to see on the ground. A lone signal breaks easily. Pictures need a partner in sound. Sound needs a partner on radio. Radio needs a partner in everyday habits. Cook fire smoke at the usual hour. A well-used guard path. A forgotten item placed on purpose. When small fragments speak in chorus, telling one story, the watcher believes that the conclusion is his or her own. The story does not need to be perfect. It only needs to have human-shaped flaws in exactly the right places. Night drops fast. A faint chalk line marks a formation on the grass. The first tank swells, then the second, then the third. Each taut canvas shape is turned off by a small angle, like a unit resting after a long march. The engineer team drives stakes along the bank, sprinkles a thin layer of fine gravel, so the wheel marks press down evenly. A supply tent stands offset on the windy side. An empty crate sits casually, throwing a square shadow across the turf. Small things the eye picks up and remembers. At first light, the sun lifts over the trees. Shadows arrive on schedule. Straight, long, hard-edged. A camera above will read at once a reasonable density of vehicles. Gaps that make sense. Fresh ruts press on top of the old, as if another run came through at night. A sharp turn leaves the mark of a pivot. At the edge of the field, boot prints thicken, spaced like a guard shift. Everything is arranged by hand. No labels, only coherence. The sound field begins to shift, sliding from position A to position B in 20 minutes, then pulling back halfway toward A. Down in the valley, listeners form the sentence on their own, left platoon reinforcing right. The mix keeps a little roughness. One command out of breath, one hook scraping metal, because perfection is often fake. A private cups a hand to his ear. They are towing vehicles, he says. The man beside him nods, without looking. Sound has pushed. Image only needs to catch. Inside the tent, the operator taps the watch face. It is time. A short burst goes out. Silent for 10 seconds. A second burst. Silence. On the far side, the tape analyst scribbles in the margin. Distinctive quiet window. A familiar spelling mistake is returned to its usual spot. The frequency watches not the smallest nod. Signature matches. When the signature matches, the formation on the ground is instantly promoted to a real unit. The map lies flat on the table. A desk lamp burns yellow. A metal ruler ticks softly at the river's edge. Aerial recon. 2 fresh rows of tank tents. Signals intelligence. Familiar frequency. Familiar cadence. Repeated mistake. Forward shouts. Ruts as deep as tracked vehicles. The pencil tip draws a dark ring. Hold 2 reserve regiments on that bank. On this bank, engineers drive wooden mallets into pontoon posts. The bridge creeps up one more latch. The arrow on the map shifts, just enough to make one morning quieter than usual under the guns. The German staff room stacks 3 piles of paper on top of one another. Aerial photographs, signals intelligence logs, forward infantry reports. Shadows match. Transmission cadence matches. Deep track ruts. Short lines that lock into a conclusion on their own. There is an armored division. 1 signature. 3 stamps. The order leaves the table. Hold the reserves on this bank. On the map, a pencil point drags a heavy line, circling a force threat. 2 reserve regiments. Turn around. Make a short march. Take positions along the wrong bank. Shells are issued. Binoculars are raised. Everything aims at an empty patch of ground. Across the river, engineers swing wooden mallets. A pontoon panel nudges into place. A latch snaps shut with a click. No batteries of guns bear down. Only the wind and the slap of boots on wet planks. 1 company crosses, then another. The casualty list loses a line. At dusk, valves hiss. Canvas collapses. Tents fold. Loudspeakers are wrapped. Radios go quiet. Track marks are half erased by the wind. An empty ammunition box is forgotten on the field. They leave before the enemy infantry can lay a hand on anything at all. In the evening report, a short line. The enemy reinforced fire on an empty target. There is no praise, and none is needed. Only just enough empty space for a bridge to stand. Through the night, the human brain likes to close the picture. Pictures supply formation. Shadow, track marks. Sound supplies distance. Movement. Radio supplies cadence. Quiet windows. Repeated mistakes. Habit supplies tiny clues. Cook fire smoke at the usual hour. A familiar guard route. A forgotten object. Loose pieces. Speak in chorus. The watcher believes that the conclusion is his or her own. The lesson can be written in 5 short lines. Synchronize across channels. Imitate habits. Choose the right distance. Arrive fast and leave early. The goal is to save lives. After the war, files slowly open. A photograph of an inflatable tank. A map with a ring of pencil. A radio notebook with a spelling mistake. Those principles walk into other places. A decoy server responds a little slow, so an intruder stays longer. A tilted sign nudges a crowd to split into safer lanes. A white car parks by accident, blocking a line of sight for 15 minutes, long enough for a cordon to close. The boundary is drawn in one sentence. Deceive to save. Do not deceive to destroy. The art of deception is not for showing of tricks. It is for reducing real casualties. If you cannot take one name of the list, every trick is unnecessary. In the unit's memory, there are always two bells. One to call when a believable story must be set. One to remember. The empty space that spared lives. At first light, the grass holds only wooden stakes, faint ruts, and the fading smell of rubber. The empty space is still there, like a straight bridge across the river. There are no fireworks, only a few minutes of quiet, where a small group told one right story, just believable enough. No shots fired, and yet people were saved. A well-timed fake is stronger than the real thing in the wrong place. If this story makes you see war differently, leave a small sign. One like for Deceive to Save. One comment. Whether inflatable canvas or radio that repeats a typo surprised you more. And one subscribe, so stories like this do not get buried again.